one's live. And hi, gorgeous Renee. Good to have you here. And a good way to support this show, as you can see, is by the Super Chat. Also, if you're new, hit that subscribe button. We want 15,000 by my birthday, May 24th. 15,000. Bassmaster, good to have you here. Or is it Bassmaster? Are you a fisherman or a bass player? Let us know. And let me say thank you, everyone, for the 10,000. It was a big push to get there on our channel, and we're there now. It's great. Hit that subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever you decide that we deserve. Give it to us. We can take it. We're big kids around here. A great way to support this show. Do a little shopping at the SOR Vault. Facebook.com/the SOR Vault is the address to our show or our store. Here comes the show right now. Columbia, to you listening around the world. This, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. If you want to take a listen to our archives, they are free for you at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. Oh, do we have a treat for all of you tonight. This is going to be a fantastic show as Pane Andov is joining us all the way from Australia. Now, this is a gentleman who wanted to create public conscious awareness. So what did he do? He did something about it. He created a monthly publication of his own magazine called The Sixth Sense. As the chief editor, they put out 32 editions so far. It gave him unrestricted rights to document information regarding ancient civilizations, UFO phenomena, extraterrestrial influences over humanity, top-secret projects, experiments, hidden agendas of the elite, ancient esoteric arts such as meditation, kundalini energy, astral projection, remote viewing, telepathy. Oh, you know I love that one. So why does he do this? Why does Pane get into it all? I'm going to tell you, this man is extremely talented with his writing. You can find all of his books on Amazon.com or .ca if you're in Canada. And then at the bottom of hour number 3, I'm going to bring you the SOR Newswire, brought to you by Paranoia Magazine. Pane Andov, welcome to Spaced Out Radio for the first time. How are you?
Thank you so much, Dave. Thank you so much for having me once again. I'm well appreciated. I'm really well and looking forward for our discussion.
Me too. Me too. Now, let's learn a little bit about you, because for a lot of people out there who may not be familiar with these topics or maybe skimmed across them, you know, this is something that you are very passionate about. Where did that passion come from?
It's been a long journey for me, over 30 years, Dave, and practically it started with close encounter of the fourth kind when I was only 7, and then they have actually changed my DNA functionality to a high degree, so to speak, and I started to experience the so-called astral projection and similar phenomena. And from there, it was just one thing after another, and then the contacts intensified to a very high degree that they become frequent, especially in 2007, 2008. There's a huge amount of download of data was going on, and I literally translated over 250 genuine crop circle formations, if you will, and decoded the messages embedded into the geometry of those crop circles, if you will. But probably the best thing to do is just to start from the beginning, how it all started, so to speak. You know.
Yeah, let's go.
I was 7. Yeah, I was 7 at the time, and I was born in Skopje, in Macedonia, in Europe, and my brother Milan Chandov, he was 14 years older than me. He's gone now, unfortunately. But at the time, he was training martial arts, and he used to, go very close to the house that we were living at the time, and to train his martial arts. And from time to time, he used to take me with him. And one evening, nothing special, nothing particular. It was very nice, clear sky, blue full moon. And as we were walking along the river, I was just watching at the full moon, and there appeared another object. And then I asked my brother, because I was only 7 at the time, how come there could be 2 moons? When I didn't got any response from my brother, I just looked at him, and he was just staring with open mouth, and this object was approaching fast, and it came about 50 meters from us, and I was able to see clearly that it was literally glowing with orange, red, and yellow pulsating light. It was like a burning fire, so to speak, like the entire surface of the objects was like alive, like nanotechnology, under some alien artificial intelligence, so to speak. And the next thing that took place, there was a huge white flash. And the moment that the white flash appeared, I immediately felt the difficulty of breathing and the weightlessness. And the loss of weight lasted about 10 seconds or so, until the whiteness started to disappear a bit, and I noticed like a opening, and there was like some silhouettes that were visible. As the whiteness started to, rapidly decrease, I noticed that those silhouettes that are standing and looking at us, they're not human. You can just imagine the adrenaline rush, so to speak, the 7-year-old boy, when he's seeing, creatures which are not human. I was not prepared for that at all. But immediately they contact me, and I heard in my head, in Macedonian language, that not to be afraid, that they're not here to hurt me. And one of the creatures actually gave me a hand, which I took it, and after they took me through a certain like a passage, I was actually taken into the interior of the ship. So in contrast with some of the abductees, which are just having foggy memories of, certain elements of their, abduction experience and similar things, I was clearly seeing everything. The entire ship was made completely from nanotechnology, so to speak. The walls itself, there was like some form of like a plastic that looked like a plastic that was literally, there was like a rainbow light that was going on this plastic, and there were certain like dark windows that I was seeing, and everywhere the creatures were looking. There were algorithms in the alien language and certain statistics that they were using, but there were no hardware or software that we are familiar. It was all like a virtual reality holograms that they were actually doing. And they said that in order to be sure, they have to run certain tests. So at that point, I lost my brother, and as soon as we went through, the creatures, by the way, were very different. They were a lot smaller. The head was bigger, the eyes was bigger, and it was changing color. And they had four fingers and 4 toes, and the skin was more like a whitish grayish, if you will, more like a dolphin type of skin, if you will. And they were communicating telepathically, and in one point, one of the creatures literally waved, and there was like a levitating, rectangular, like a monolith that appeared, and they actually said, just lie down on that one, which I did. And then the other creature just looked up, and there was like a source of light that appeared, and immediately like a laser beam started to go on my body and the skin. I didn't feel any pain or whatever. It just felt like a more colder or warmer sensation, if you will. So I don't know what they were doing at the time, but later I understood that they had the technology literally to scan the life force itself. In other words, all your past incarnations and the journey that you have taken for the last, let's say, 10,000, 20,000 years plus, which is accumulated into the immaterial part of the DNA, if you will, what the life force or the soul is keeping, so to speak, when it's traveling from body to body or life to life. And what they were actually after is, the experiences, the aspirations, and so on and so forth. And they said that they are glad that they have found me before the others did. I didn't know who are the others at the time, but I know perfectly now. And the sensations from the skin, they stopped, and then immediately they were transferred to the right side of my head. And it started to burn a bit, and obviously they were rewriting my cellular structure inside the cerebral cortex, so to speak, and they were putting alien implant. When that was done, I was able to hear them more clearly, and they said that they have done something that will change how I perceive the reality. And I didn't know what to make of it at the time, but what they actually did is they activated certain potentials of the consciousness of the psyche, like astral projection and similar things. And they said that once when those things are going to develop, and I will learn about them from the experience, and eventually I will tell other people about them. Exactly what they said, that's exactly what it happened, you know. And for the finish of the entire contact is that they made the entire floor of the UFO completely transparent, so I was able to see how we are flying, moving above the Vodno mountain, which is the biggest mountain in Skopje, approaching fast towards the suburb that I was living in the time, which was Kapos 4, so to speak. And then there was another white flash, and immediately I found myself in my bed, in the bedroom, and I didn't absolutely lose any awareness at all. The first thing that came through my mind was what happened with my brother. I immediately jumped out of the bed, went directly into his room, and I saw my brother literally shaking in his bed, and there was blood coming from his nostril opening. My mother literally woke up, and when she saw what's happening, she freaked out, and she started to repeat, what happened. My brother was literally out of his zone, so to speak, and me, on the other hand, I remember exactly what took place, and she wanted to call the police or someone just to see what's happening. And the weird part was that there was only one entrance into the room, and there were two locksmiths, and they were both locked. So she said, how in the world that you guys got back home, when the locks are locked, if you will. So from there, after 15-20 minutes, my brother stabilized, the bleeding stabilized, and I started to talk to my mother, exactly what happened, but she was not very happy from what she is hearing. And the next morning, things started to change. As I woke up, I started to notice extreme voices in my head. And those voices were the exact thoughts of my brother, my mother, and the people around me. And what is even more interesting is as soon as I went through some like a sharp edge or very close to like a corner of the furniture or something, I felt like something is cutting me. Like the sensitivity of my auric field, if you will, became so sensitive, so high that I was able to feel things on a distance, if you will. Before I touched the pen, so to speak, I felt that the pen was vibrating, and similar stuff. But the most extraordinary thing that took place is that the next night, as I fell asleep, I woke up in the middle of the night, and there was very, very high noise in my ears, like a buzzing sound, but with extremely high level. I didn't know what to make of it at the time, but now people call that experience of sleeping paralysis.
Right.
And from there, I just literally lift off, and about meter or so, and I was able to see the entire bedroom, so to speak, from that angle. When I turned around, I saw my own body in the bed, and that freaked me out, and the entire experience was cut off. But then again it happened, and then I got the courage, to go through the ceiling, and it was quite amazing because I was able to see the entire, neighborhood, from about 10-15 meters, height. It was quite amazing, and I didn't apply flying like in astral traveling most people do. It was just like a long jumps, 10, 15, 20 meter jumps. But what was quite remarkable, there was an orb of light about 50 meters away from me, like babysitting me all the time, wherever I was going with my transparent, because my entire body was transparent. I was watching in my astral body, and the entire phenomena of the supersonic force, if you will, lasted for a couple of weeks, and unfortunately ended with the incident one night just before I actually went to sleep. Once again, I was only 7 at the time, and my brother and my mother, they used to use like electrical blankets. I don't know if you remember those, a long time ago. We bought them from Germany, and you just plug it in, and it warms out the bed, so to speak. And in 10 minutes, it's completely, because it can get really, really cold, minus 15, 20 degrees Celsius, and even lower. And the moment when she actually put the blanket, she got a phone call from her neighbor, and she said, "Look, can you come for a coffee?" And she said, "I'm just preparing to put Pane to sleep." And after a conversation, she was convinced, and we took off, towards the neighbors. As she is drinking coffee, I'm starting to see multidimensionally. I'm seeing the children of the neighbor, as that I'm playing with, but in the same time, I'm starting to seeing smoke coming from the bedroom. And it happened for 10, 15 seconds, and then it stopped. And then after a minute or two, it intensified. And then eventually I started to see fire from the house. And I approached my mother and said, "Look, Mom, something is not right. I'm seeing that the house is on fire." And she just ignored me. You're imagining things. And then after 5 minutes, again, very, very strong. Now I was seeing the fire, and with open eyes completely, as I'm seeing everything else, much stronger impulse of danger. And then I started to make a scene, and the neighbor finally, she said, "Look, Peppa, let's go and check it out." And as we go, around the corner, when our house was visible, my mother noticed a huge smoke coming out from the house. She starts screaming. All the neighbors came, with buckets of water, whatever they could carry, and they put the fire down. Luckily, it didn't go to the electrical installation to burn the house to the ground, so to speak. But when the neighbors actually went away, she got so pissed off, and she said, "How in the world are you able to do this? I will take you to hospital, to surgery tomorrow, or to see, what kind of devil just went inside of you, so to speak." But she really scared the thing, out of me, so to speak, from that point. And I backed this force back inside. So it didn't. The next morning, I didn't hear any voices. I was not able to feel things like before, to be connected with things. Neither the so-called out of the body experiences were occurring anymore. So nothing drastically happened for the next 7 years or so. And then after that time, we went for a holiday in Croatia, where my uncle had a lot of knowledge and literature about the Tibetan Buddhism, about the Qigong, the Shaolin monks, yoga, pranayama, out-of-body experience, that kind of stuff. And he started to handing me some literature, which I started to go through. And I was familiar with some of it, but some of it was quite extraordinary. And in certain magazines and books, I found information about the astral projection. And I literally fell in love with it. And I started training, I found the techniques, and I keep on going. And it took me 12 months to achieve my first conscious out-of-body experience, really? After the event when I was only 7. So I was training really, really hard, from
at
yoga
7.
nidra. No, that's at 14. That's 14.
But either way, how? And pardon me for interrupting you, but how do you train yourself on all of this at such a young age? Where did you find the mental capacity and strength to do this?
It was installed through the implant and through the communication, because they never stopped monitoring me, if you will. The way I see it, how my life unfolded, after the event that took place, the time was 7, and the break of the 7 years, all that break, they were always there watching me. And when I got 14 or so, that's when I started progressively researching, training from Tai Chi to Kundalini Yoga, to Yoga Nidra and similar stuff. There was a specific technique that I was applying, which required a total relaxation, which took me around 50 minutes to achieve, where the magnetic pulling between the physical body and the astral body weakens to the point. And then I applied certain visualization of certain techniques, of certain symbols, until it got to the point that I was entering the vibrational state or the sleeping paralysis, something similar, and then I was taking out. But this is where the good part comes out.
Okay.
At the beginning, my out of body experiences were not long. I was lucky if I was able to get out of the body for 15, 20 seconds, sometimes a minute, two, three, and so on and so forth. But as I started to progress more, I introduced the training with the ESP cards or the Zener cards. Luckily, I had a huge number of friends, and many of those friends, were helping me to train blindfold. I was actually pushing 7 hours per day, believe it or not, for months and months and months, and until it get to the point that all those astral projections that I was actually taking were prolongated more and more. It just prolongated to 20 minutes, half an hour, then 40 minutes, and so on and so forth. So in one suburb that I was living at the time, which is called Novo Lisice, I did thousands of out-of-the-body experiences. I watched exactly how it's happening, how the orbs are doing that kind of stuff and all that thing. And then the communications with the extraterrestrials reappeared again. And this time was also with the negative ones that were not happy. Why? Because there is certain programs that I will speak about later during the show that are on play, so to speak, that are running, which are preventing the human consciousness to be aware on astral plane and that immaterial part of the universe, if you will. So I asked the ETs, what is going on, and they said that the entire solar system, unfortunately, has been in quarantine. And I said, what do you mean? And they said, you will learn in time by your own experience. And I was so keen to depart the planet with my astral body, but unfortunately, every time when I was flying up, I was reaching about 40 kilometers altitude, and then I was hitting like an invisible ceiling, and my astral projection cut off immediately, and I just either was feeling how I'm slightly, sinking into the physical body, or I was seeing my physical body and gently, combining with it and waking up physically. And then I asked, the ETs, how come I can't depart the planet? And they said that there is a shield of energy which is very hard to detect to our scientists, which doesn't allow the human consciousness to depart the planet, if you will. That's why when most of the people are having lucid dreaming or similar things, they usually dream about local stuff, like rivers, mountains, cities, and so on and so forth. But rarely they are dreaming, that they are seeing the sun from an angle, or a Jupiter or
right.
moon from the angle, so on and so forth, And they said, look, the next time when you enter, because I was also the easiest way that I was entering the astral plane, so to speak, was through dream control. In other words, as soon as I detect some anomaly inside the dream, something which didn't make any sense, it triggered a reality check. And immediately when that was on the run, I immediately become aware that I'm dreaming. As that happens, there are a couple of scenarios that can occur. It can occur, let's say, if you're not trained, it can induce immediate physical awakening, or sometimes the consciousness can split on 2 or 3 parts. For example, part of the consciousness can still remain inside the dream and seeing what is dreaming, and the other part starts to feel on which side the physical body is positioned.
Pane, I'm going to get you to hold on right there, because we are going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. We are going to get into astral travel. What's it like going out there on the plane? I want to know. I'm sure some of you want to know. And we're going to find out with Pane Andov tonight on Spaced Out Radio. This is going to be a wild show. Stay buckled in. We'll be right back. That's a good, solid first half hour, man. Wow.
Yeah.
Fantastic story. That's beautiful.
Yeah. It happened. It was remarkable, and how the life unfolds further, I will explain, and many things will start to make perfect sense. You will see. My journey was always to find the truth as much as possible and to find the answers.
See, I wish with my experiences, I wish they would have happened at a younger age. I really do. Like, mine didn't kick in until I was, it was 2011. And in 2011, I would have been 38 years old. I feel a little ripped off by that because I would love to have some of this stuff happen when I'm at a younger age. I totally would.
Yeah, here. Look, when we are done, when you're free, I can just set up 2-3 hours on Skype with you, and I will show you some tips. Tell you some tips and moves that because I have thousands of students worldwide. That I'm teaching this, and the age can be a factor sometimes, but not always. If you change the dynamic of how you function, you can still achieve it and at the age that you are now.
Oh, I agree. I totally agree. I can do some pretty funky stuff now. I don't really talk about it in front of the audience, but I mean, I can do some funky stuff. I have no idea how I do it. I just know that I can.
Yeah, I hear you. Look. I will continue towards explanation. What is happening.
Absolutely.
And we will take it from there.
Yeah,
then
absolutely.
If it's okay with you, we will
Sure.
go to some of the ancient, world, and then implants and abduction, all that kind of stuff, is.
Oh yeah, you're making me a happy man right now, Pane. You're making me a happy. All right, man. I got to ask you. On behalf of our audience, we ask all new guests this. What is your opinion of eating breakfast for dinner?
Oh, that's interesting, mate. Look, I eat only 2 meals, so it doesn't make any difference to me when the meal is going to be. But I hear, I understand what you're saying.
Are you eating pancakes or ham and eggs at dinner time with some hash browns?
I am vegetarian and vegan for the last 12 years, straight. So haven't tasted fish or meat.
Good for you.
A long time, mate. Long time.
Good for you. Good for you. I'm not. I tried. I couldn't give up bacon.
Fair enough. Maybe in time. Who knows?
I couldn't give up bacon. That's screwed me right up. Fish I had no problem because I've never eaten fish. The other stuff I didn't mind.
It's understanding, Dave.
Yeah.
Go once in slaughterhouse and you will see why people don't eat meat. I
used to work at a chicken factory.
Yeah,
it doesn't bother me. Doesn't bother me.
You're used to it, but many people, as soon as they get into the slaughterhouse and see what's happening, it changes them completely, And it's absolutely unnecessary, in my opinion, to hurt, animals or whatever, because they have feelings. They have.
So does grass. So does grass and trees and plants.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't use that argument. I'm all appreciative of the argument, and I'm willing to go there. But you can't do that. That's not.
I know. I hear you, and I'm taking that on board also. But unless the genetics is reestablished, you have to eat something. Otherwise, you can't function.
Absolutely. Hold on one sec. Hey, we got Gary the Dutchman in our chat room tonight, and he is the owner of one of our sponsors, Mighty Moose Beard Oil. Go to MightyMooseBeard.com, where we use a little bit of beard oil here, real simple. You just grab a little tube here, you put it in your hand, nice and simple like that. And then, if you got some nice whiskers like old Davey does, you rub your hands together, just kind of massage it in. You massage it in. This is the winter blend I'm using. I love it. Make sure you go. Remember, it's in Canadian dollars. So if you're in the U.S., you're saving money. You're totally saving money. Just makes your beard and your hair feel nice. And ladies, it's good for split ends as well. So you could use it in your hair. Yes, it's beard oil. It's all natural. No chemicals. MightyMooseBeard.com. Make sure you use promo code SOR 2019. Big thank you to Fapster, John Sadler, and Cat Chaser for the amazing super chats. Thank you to help us push over 10,000 subscribers. And we're going to continue with the show here in about, let's say 3 seconds. Hold on. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us tonight. Really do appreciate earning your listening ears. And hey, we finally hit 10,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel. Wow, 10,000. We're going for 15 now by May 24th. That's what I want. That's my birthday goal. But anyways, I want to remind you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel, because our archives are free there at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and our website is spacedoutradio.com. Author, researcher, editor, this man is all about telling the story about the strange, and I don't know how to really explain it. I mean, Pane Andov, who is our guest tonight, he's gone through the gamut, literally starting at 7 years old. And now here we are, a number of years later, and he is a leader in this field when it comes to describing everything from telepathy, astral projection. You can find all of his books by going to Amazon.com. Pane, welcome back.
Thank you, Dave. So as I was explaining, I was most easily entering the vibrational state through dream control. So any inconsistencies or anomaly inside the dream, it was immediately detected by my consciousness. And as soon as that was happening, I realized that I'm inside the dream. As explained previously, there are a couple of things that can occur during that realization that you're dreaming. One of the occurrences is that you can either physically awake immediately if you're not trained, or eventually there will be like a split of consciousness. One part of the consciousness still remains in the dream, and the other part of the consciousness starts to feel on which side the physical body, is actually lying. And the third thing is the so-called sleeping paralysis. In other words, you are pushed to a fully awakened state where you have the full access to your memory bank, so to speak. But unfortunately, there is a huge noise in your ears, and usually waves of energy that you're experiencing. And usually most people have a difficult time dealing, because as soon as the realization comes that you can't physically move, that's where the panic starts to kick in. And they start to use every single atom of energy to break free from the sleeping paralysis, if you will. So first of all, I would just quickly explain what the sleeping paralysis is, and in contrast with there are many Facebook pages, about astral projection and sleeping paralysis, and I have visited most of them. And most of those, they have no real understanding of what is going on. So let me just quickly explain what is happening in my understanding. We are immaterial consciousness, immaterial living force, which is living in a seven-dimensional universe, if you will. So we have a host or a body, if you will, a vehicle for every of those 7 planes of existence. The first body is the most densest one, which we call the physical body, which actually, it accommodates us. We can move through this physical plane of existence. The second one is the so-called etheric body, which is a perfect duplicate to us. It never departs the physical body unless in 2 situations, either through the process that we call physical death, when the higher principles of consciousness depart the body for the last time, and in the same fashion as the physical body decomposes over time, the etheric body stays around the graveyard, so to speak, that it decomposes over a longer period of time, so to speak. And the other occasions is if the ETs pull it out for certain very complex surgery or protocol which is needed. In other words, it never departs the body because it's in tune with the nervous system of the physical body. That's where all those chakras or energetic channels are interconnected, and we are talking about 72,000 energetic channels interconnected with 77 basic energy centers, out of which 7 are primary, and they're located in the spinal cord area. And the next one is the astral body, which is completely transparent, immaterial, in contrast with the etheric body, which is half material and half immaterial, so to speak. The astral body is the first vehicle that we can actually utilize, which is from immaterial nature, so to speak. And there are other vehicles above, or more sophisticated, more profound, more energetic than the astral body. So in other words, what practically happens during the sleeping paralysis, as you actually enter the dreaming state and you realize that you're inside a dream, and that actually triggered a reality check. And then instead of, achieving, how should I put it, astral projection or physical awakening, you are pushed to the bed, but you can't move. You can't move because the consciousness didn't return to the physical body. It returned to the etheric body where all those energetic channels, that's why you feel the energy that sometimes runs through, because people sometimes report that the energy runs from the feet point and goes straight up, or to the base of the spine straight up. In either case, there is like a hum or a noise or a buzzing sound, which is appear which no one else can hear, because that's the energy of the Kundalini force, if you will. So in other words, the consciousness can't move the physical body because it's not synchronized with the physical body. It's synchronized with the etheric body. So there are two exits out of this condition, as the extraterrestrials have taught me, so to speak. The one exit, if you don't want to achieve out of body travel or similar thing, you just need to calm down. You don't go to panic, never. You just calm down, and as you calm down, the buzzing sound will start to decrease, in strength. The energy level will decrease, and from buzzing sound of this, like a, it will go, and as it slows down, you will start to feel your fingers again. You will start to feel your toes again, legs, and so on and so forth. In other words, you'll be able to move your physical body again. So what actually took place is that the consciousness desynchronized with the etheric body and synchronized with the physical body again, where you can control your brain, and through the brain and DNA, which is the executive software, so to speak, of the biocomputer that we call physical body, you can control it. So that's one exit out. But if a person wants to achieve astral projection, if you will, it is very crucial that you amplify the energy. So when you amplify the energy needs to reach the forehead region. Especially there is a center in the brain which is called the right angular gyrus. It's in the right side of the hemisphere. As soon as that center gets a power supply, you can actually say to yourself, I just want to astrally project, and the astral body, you leave the physical body immediately. The astral body will separate. The moment that the astral body will separate, you will not be hearing the sound anymore, and you will be able to utilize the astral body. You can pass through wall, fly, and so on and so forth. So just to get back to the point that I was making before, when I was asking why I can't depart the planet, the ET said the vehicle that I'm currently utilizing, it's not sophisticated enough, or not compatible, more accurately, to depart the planet. I said, what do you mean? They said, next time when you enter the vibrational state, don't exit the physical body yet. Instead of exiting the physical body yet, despite the fact that you have a, let's say, open gate, open chance to do it, focus on something which is most divine. But they said it has to be true, it has to be honest, something which resonates. Sometimes people resonate with God, with cosmic love, brotherhood, whatever. Everyone has something which genuinely resonates with. And that's exactly what I did. The next time when I went into the sleeping paralysis state, instead of departing the physical body, and achieving just standard and default astral projection, so to speak, I focused on cosmic love. I opened up my heart, so to speak. Immediately I did that, Dave, there was like an explosion of sound. The sound that I was hearing in my ears, it was just probably 50, 100 times louder. It was killing me. The energy, usually when I was entering the sleeping paralysis, there was like a darkish bluish light that I was perceiving, but this time was like a rainbow light of appearance, very similar what the Asian Indian yogis described as samadhi, if you will, a state of bliss. And in that particular phase, when I felt that it's strong enough, I departed the body. And quite amazingly, when I was departing my physical body about 2-3 o'clock in the morning, usually it was pitch black inside the house, I couldn't see much, regarding to the high definition, perception, so to speak. You can still perceive things, but not as good. But with this vehicle, which I further called the self-luminescent body, the entire room was illuminated. because the entire aura of this vehicle was illuminating outwards. Sometimes people report, getting stuck with the astral body. For example, the upper part of the astral body goes out, but it doesn't want to separate the lower part. Or sometimes people report getting stuck into the ceiling, or similar things. And because of the lack of the energy, or eventually they start flying, and after, let's say, flying 100, 200, 300 meters, they start to feel like, they're losing energy, and as their concentration breaks down more, and then all of a sudden they wake up physically, But this energetic body that I was actually projecting now, the moment I said, look, I want to get out from here, I passed through the balcony, I went down on the grass, and then immediately, take the, fists in my astral, or actually self-luminescent body, and just took off. And I passed that barrier. And as I passed that barrier, I was able to see, the entire planet Earth from above, and one can only imagine the adrenaline rush. It's one thing to see, from the International Space Station and so on and so forth. So whoever thinks that the Earth is flat, I can definitely say from my personal experience, it's not. But the quite amazing thing is that there were orbs of light that were grouping very close to me as I departed. They were very happy with the progress. Those were the same orbs of light, if you will, that did the contact, when I was only 7 and following me most of my life till then, But the negative part about it was that immediately there were like a dark discs and other similar type of crafts which came, and I picked up a telepathic exchange between them, and they were not happy what the orbs of life had done, like they have violated some form of treaty, so to speak, and to protect me, the positive ones literally cut off the experience. And for me it was, this was the first time that I actually experienced the stuff. But now it gets even more bizarre. As the time was going by, I noticed that previously when I was doing my astral projection, sometimes like 40 minutes, 1 hour or so, I was not able to see the UFOs. They were pretty much cloaked. Like, for example, you go outside nowadays and you shoot with a normal light camera, you don't see much. But if you start shooting in parallel with infrared or night vision camera, from time to time you start to see objects, moving information, appearing, disappearing, and so on and so forth. In other words, the entire astral vision of the normal default body was limited. I couldn't see, the alien beings. I couldn't see the orbs and so on and so forth. But in contrast with the self-luminescent body, I started to notice big UFOs cloaked, and it started to get into me, so to speak. I noticed that something is not right here. And in one instance, there was like a UFO craft that was around, 50, 60 meters, big. And it was visible from the proximity of the balcony. So I immediately went back to my physical body. I jumped out of the bed, went to the balcony and to see it physically. And with the physical eyes, instead of UFO, I noticed a circle in the clouds, a hole in the clouds. So practically, they were manipulating us, so to speak. They were deceiving us, because quite frankly, if the aliens wants to show themselves, they will land or eventually appear in thousands above every major city, above New York, London, Moscow, Belgrade, everywhere. And the shadow government can't stop them, but they are not appearing because there is a different agenda, if you will. So it started from there. I started researching, and then I noticed that they are taking people without their consent, and without any agreement to it, so to speak, And all this self-luminescent body that the positive ETs were saying were teaching me completely different things what I was seeing on the television, what the researchers were saying, what the books were saying. And the downside of it, at the time, I couldn't talk with many people regarding to that. They would say, look, you're crazy, if you know what I mean. You can't talk about this experience. And I noticed that they are utilizing the orbs, for certain purposes that About more than 90% of the so-called dreams are artificially induced. Those orbs are literally sucking the information from our subconscious, and they can create a holographic reality inside the astral plane, which we perceive as a dream, depending if the eyes of the astral body it's open or closed. If the eyes of the astral body while you're dreaming are closed, you will not be able to see the physical environment in the real world. For example, the streets, the buildings, houses, and that kind of stuff. But instead of that, you will be in some very dense hologram, so to speak, that you will see, certain things. And most of the time, it will be very, very unpleasant, which those orbs are sucking energy through. So as I progress further into the research, I will go back to the orbs and that kind of stuff a bit later as we progress. I started to ask more questions, and I said, look, tell me exactly what's going on here, because many things doesn't make sense. And they said that unfortunately the entire solar system is occupied by intelligence which is not friendly towards the humankind. And I said, what do you mean? They said, look, on this planet, this is not the first civilization that existed.
Oh, really?
And this, yeah, and they said that the first colonization, because probably the best thing to do for me is to try to explain about the reality itself and what the cosmos is. Probably the best thing to do is to say that inside the cosmos or in the space there are many habitable zones, if you will, despite the fact what the mainstream, how should I put it, astronomy is telling us. And if the ancient, so to speak, Indian Puranas are correct, which is a very solid source of information, which is translated from Sanskrit also, we are talking about 400,000 humanoid races just in the visible part of the universe, if you will, So they have found different ways to travel. So what we are using today, unfortunately, because our potential has been downgraded, and I will actually talk about that shortly. As a rocket, propulsion, they're using the so-called cosmic metro system. In other words, the black holes, or the supermassive black holes and the stars are actually traversable wormholes. And from jumping into one star, so to speak, inside the star, you can actually jump into this cosmic metro system, and you can travel at least 20 light years in 1 nanosecond, as far as I was explained. So in that way, they can cross far more bigger distances than that we are able to understand, if you will. And that's exactly what we are observing from the documented evidence from SOHO, from Solar Dynamic Observatory, and similar things, which means you can see like a huge cigar UFO coming very close to the sun, shooting a beam of plasma, so to speak, directly into the sun, and using cymatic sound, it opens the sun gate. And then you can see either the object just sink into the star and disappear, or eventually there are smaller objects which are coming out. In either way, it's like a bus stations between the stars, so to speak. So in this way, they can travel through the galaxy and beyond, and so on and so forth. So in other words, the first colonizators came around from 70,000 to 50,000 years ago. So what I will be sharing with you, Dave, and with the audience is something very different from what the Zacharia Sitchin and the Anunnaki theory and Frank Hawk and other people which have actually presented, already. So in my personal understanding, the entire life in the universe comes from the cosmic engineering. Right. So in fact, life in cosmos does not appear randomly, if you will. So there are races out there sophisticated enough, evolved enough to literally terraform, a lifeless planet from completely rocks to a livable environments, if you will. So just a logical question, what condition must the planet have to support the life as we know it, right? So we're talking about extended regions of liquid water,
Right.
conditions favorable for the assembly of complex organic molecules, energy sources to sustain metabolism, and similar. And also you have to have, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, calcium, and so on and so forth. In other words, these cosmic designers need to know the fundamental programming language of life, which is biology. Biology by itself, by the way, it's a self-assembling nanotechnology with a built-in programming language, right? So in other words, they have to know how to code RNA and DNA, if you will. So in contrast with the mainstream academia, what is pushing, which is all corrupted, unfortunately, and the Smithsonian Institute, which is part of the Freemasons and the secret societies, is no secret anymore, unfortunately. Life on planet Earth didn't occur from amoeba and then evolved to more complex organisms. It was completely brought here, fully established, right? So according to their accepted planetary evolution, model of the existence and how the life appeared, they say that the planet Earth actually formed about 4.5 billion years ago, when our solar system settled into this current layout, and approximately 230 million years ago, the dinosaurs appeared, evolved from the reptiles, which is again wrong because there was like a genetic downgrade, so to speak, and the reptiles that we are seeing nowadays are evolved from something else, which I will also mention, But the interesting thing is that the dinosaurs, according to them, they went extinct about 65 million years ago, and anatomically modern humans, if I remember correctly, they appeared around 200,000 years ago. And if this is so, if dinosaurs went extinct about 65 million years ago and anatomically modern humans appeared only 200,000 years ago, then how can this be? The fossil record in many occasions are showing, of human footsteps in parallel with the dinosaurs. In other words, what I'm trying to say, the humans were literally giants in those days, But the thing is, in our ancient past, we had different living forms, from beings with elongated skulls, more arms, more legs, different brain capacity. Some of the creatures, they had like a spike growing from the top of their head. They had the longer ears and so on and so forth. The life was completely different. And some powerful people, practically, they want to erase the history, And I'm talking about the Smithsonian Institution that was established in August 10, 1846, and it's responsible, in my personal opinion, for the biggest deliberate cover-up of the human nation history. About not just about the giants, but also about the extraterrestrials, and all the kind of stuff, what was happening, and it took it from there, and it's quite remarkable that the universe itself, I was asking the very, very basic questions which are bothering all of us. I said, look, what is the purpose of life?
Right.
Why we are existing at all? What is this? And they said that the primary function of the universe is like a catalyst. I said, what do you mean?
Right. Pane, I'm going to get you to hold on right there because we do have to go to break here at the top of the hour, and full of information, my friend, full of information. And, I don't even know where to grasp it. But we're going to try and get in some questions for Pane as he jams all of his information in here. I'm blown away right now. How do you know all of this? That's what I want to know when we come back on Spaced Out Radio. Pane Andov is our guest tonight. We're going around the gamut from astral travel to ET connections and implants and everything in between. It's going to be a lot of fun in hour number 2. Find all the Pane's books on Amazon. Just go to amazon.com.ca.uk. Wherever you are, you can find his books. They're all right there. We'll be back with Spaced Out Radio next. All right, my friend, I'm just going to take my dogs out. I'll be right back, okay?
Okay, sounds good, mate. Sounds good. I'm here.
Do you want help finding out what's going on? I'm Ryan Stacy, head of the Experience and Support Association, otherwise known as TEPA. We teamed up to Space Out Radio to investigate cases per night in the SOR satellite system. We are independent and there's no cost to what we do. All we need is your experience. Let's find out what's happening together on the SOR satellite system.
We are scouring the world for the most intriguing stories of your day. Take the time to read up on the SOR Newswire, where our team, led by Captain best paranormal and supernatural news, along with some stories that will blow your mind from the weird to the wacky. It's the news outside the news that piques interest, and that's what we're looking to deliver to you. The SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and mustaches around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make the whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at MightyMooseBeard.com today.
I'm feeling a little spicy tonight. What to do? What to do?
Why not get Bumblefuck?
4 million Scoville units of pure hard rock. Bumblefoot hot sauces come in 3 flavors. The burning Bumble. Tone it down a bit with Bumblicious and throw the sauce on everything.
Spice it up. Bumble me, baby. Bumblefoot hot sauce. Get it today at kajans.com.
The party is always on. Moose Van Cooper. The Moose Van Cooper is where you know you can visit Canada's West Coast. Open until 2 a.m. nightly. The Moose brings in the rock while serving some of the best rated food in the city. The menu starts at $6.95. Why party anywhere else in Vancouver when the Moose is right? Get your horns up and rock with the Moose, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
For the price of 1 cup of coffee a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. The Space Travelers Club is a place where you can interact with other listeners, either live during the show or on our great forum. We want your stories, pictures, comments, and ideas. You'll get live video streams, exclusive content, and be a part of our newsletter. Stay in touch with everything SOR. The Space Travelers Club is just $5 a month at spacedoutradio.com.
Get your horns up with me on Spaced Out Radio. This is Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Come tune in to SOR where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother Is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. And then come on over to bumblefoot.com where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date on what I'm doing and the best way to stay in touch with my music and music camps. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com and remember...
All right, I'm back.
Okay. So how long do we still have? 1 hour or 1 hour and a half?
We've got another hour and a half.
Nice.
Oh, yeah. Lots of time for your message, man.
That's good, mate. That's good.
Oh, for sure. The way we like to do it here.
That's it. I think that it's interesting, so I hope that the listeners will like it.
Oh, yeah, I think they're enjoying it. I think they're very much enjoying it. Looking at it, our numbers are good right now, and everything's looking good.
That's good, man.
Yeah. So... No, this is fantastic. Fantastic. Everybody's saying we love it. We're loving this.
That's really good. Look, many things doesn't make sense at this point, but once we're very close to finish, it will start to make sense a lot more.
Give me 2 seconds here. Thank you, Fapster, John, and Cat Chaser for the super chats. Really appreciate the support. And don't forget to give us a thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever you feel. Here we go with a second half hour or second hour. I lied. We're 20 seconds away. 18 seconds. It's my new setup here. Thank you, Bombshell, for the comment on my hair. I appreciate that. Here we go, everyone. 5 seconds. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us tonight. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears, no matter where you are in this beautiful planet we call Earth. Welcome back to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, KPNL, and Revolution Radio. Remember, you can check out all of our archives for free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Halolimnic is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Tonight we talk to Pane Andov. He is an author, a lecturer. He is studious, very studious in all of the topics, from UFOs and ET contact to astral travel, telepathy, consciousness, and so much more. He is an author of many, many books. All you got to do is type in his name on Amazon. The books are all right there. And, man, it's just incredible the talent this guy has. Pane, welcome back.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate the kind words, mate. So as mentioned, I started to ask the real questions,
right.
Who we are, where did we come from, what are we doing here, where are we going, where everything around us is going, and what is this universe. And through holographic projections on the astral plane, they explained a lot to me, and they said you have to understand that the primary function of the universe is completely different from what your species understands, if you will. They said that at the beginning of the time, so to speak, there was a huge, enormous, gigantic consciousness which actually spread all around the universe and created 7 planes of existence. And the closest translations to what they were referring is that you can actually refer it as the great cosmic designer. But the quite interesting thing that they were saying is that this source consciousness that appeared in this matter, if you will, an antimatter also altogether with 7 planes of existence, it actually spread the sparks of life, according to them, in different parts of the cosmos and departed the scene. In other words, like you're just going somewhere, you're planting seeds, if you will, and then you depart, the playground, so to speak. In other words, it created 2 forces of light and forces of darkness. In every millisecond, if you will, something dies in the universe and something else is born in the universe. So it's kind of like a balance between those 2 forces which exist in the universe. The forces of darkness, they're very dense, and vibrationally and visually, the forces of light, they're far more profound, far more beautiful, if you will, So one force pushes towards the evolution of the consciousness, while the other one pushes against the evolution. And then I asked further, what that exactly means. And they said that the entire universe is practically a gigantic cosmic womb to deliver a new cosmic superconsciousness. In other words, the source consciousness that actually came into this universe, it planted the seeds and then it retracted, so to speak. So the other thing is that the purpose of the creation was to serve as an evolutionary catalyst, a school that conscious living forms would learn, mature, evolved through a variety of cosmic experiences, if you will, And its final stages of evolution, each species becomes one single conscious entity and bonds with this cosmic superconsciousness, if you will, that is by now, by this time, a sum of probably millions of other species in the universe that have already evolved and left the material world behind, if you will, So there are many other species out there in the universe which are utilizing the so-called force or the powers of the consciousness. Some are utilizing for greater good, for their evolution and spreading of the harmony and peace, while other ones are using the force for evil, selfish, and destructive purposes. Unfortunately, in this solar system, there is type 2 class civilization and occasional visitation of type 3, class civilization, which is very, very negative, and it took control thousands of years ago over this solar system. So that's something which I will explain as we go. But nevertheless, it is once when a certain species goes towards the path of darkness, it's a path towards a self-destruction, if you will, And as mentioned, those two forces, the forces of light and the forces of darkness, are both intelligent. They have both intellect, they have both different powers, different vibration. And the thing is, when this force of light notices that certain species is very close to its final stages of evolution, from the material to the immaterial as an entire species, so to speak, it sends its emissaries in order to bond with this super cosmic consciousness, if you will. It always starts with the offsprings, with the little ones. In other words, as far as I was explained, it begins with children experiencing telepathic abilities, telekinetic abilities. They start to, play with the matter, so to speak. And as they grow further, they start to experience teleportation, physical levitation, and similar, effects of the force. And then eventually a point in the development comes when they start to utilize the idea to combine their own energy. For example, individual sparks, let's say 100, 200, 300 individual entities, they start to combine their feelings, their intellect, their energy into oneness. So as this progresses, and it's guided by these, emissaries of the light, so to speak, the entire race or species eventually comes to the point that it's able or it's capable to tune something which today, because of our lack of terminology and understanding, something which is called group meditation. So this group meditative state provides a certain effect which, again, through astral projection, the consciousness can depart the physical body of the individual and combine into one super consciousness or bigger consciousness, far more powerful together than they can ever be apart. And then eventually it progresses more and more until it reaches a point that entire race, entire species, if you will, departs and breaks the bondage of the material world, if you will. It just literally departs the physical body and joins as one heave, one unity into this gigantic cosmic super consciousness. That's what they explained to me. And practically what they were saying, that the ancient Lemurians were very close to this process when the war between the Atlantis and Lemuria took place, something which I will explain in a minute. So this process of transition between the physical existence, if you will, in an entire species, segment, so to speak, can last from only a few thousand years to over 100,000 years. It's a long process, but eventually it will happen. So when we are looking in certain areas of the planet nowadays, what we call today the ancient Buddhistic temples, in Thailand, in Cambodia, in Vietnam, in other places, what we are actually looking is the ancient Rama Empire, which are the humanoid descendants from the original colony of Lemuria. They had the same principle of life as the Asians. In other words, they had the power of the consciousness. They were able to communicate telepathically. They were able to move objects with their thoughts and similar things. There was nothing like what the Zachariah Sitchin and other authors are saying that we came to be as slaves in mind, so to speak, But most importantly, those ancient Lemurians, they were able to tune into this meditative oneness, if you will, and they were almost ready, when they came into this part of the cosmos to transit. That's where the negative force, or the forces of darkness, if you will, started to send different entities, if you will, which disrupted the entire process. And it ended, unfortunately, brutally around 11,600 years ago. So Dave, in my understanding and from what they told me, there were two major conflicts in our forgotten ancient history. One was almost 12,000 years ago, or more accurately 11,600 years ago, which was more on the interplanetary scale, so to speak, because it was not just Earth that was involved. That's where the Atlantis and Lemuria were destroyed. And the other one was more recent, about 4,000 years ago, which Mahabharata and Ramayana are talking about the Vimanas and the wars with the gods and similar things. But I will elaborate this in a moment. So just give me a second. So if we concentrate on the first appearance, how this system was colonized, in contrast from what the mainstream archaeology is pushing, like millions of years of existence and then slowly, gradually, evolving into more complex forms, as mentioned. The entire life in this part of the space was brought from between 70,000 to 50,000 years ago, and through that cosmic metro system that I was mentioning before. As soon as they entered the solar system, from what they have shown me during the telepathic holographic visuals, they were starting to search for certain areas or certain moonlets and planets that they were able to utilize them for the host, for the transition from the material to the immaterial, so to speak, And they populated the planet that was once orbiting between Mars and Jupiter. Unfortunately, nowadays, the only thing which is left is the asteroid belt. They also populated Mars, and they populated Earth. In other words, they brought the hydrogen, everything else, they established the H2O and all the conditions, so to speak, which are necessary for a biological existence. By using terraforming, so to speak, they literally brought life to the solar system. In other words, the entire colonization of the solar system was not from scratch. It was just fully established civilization, technologically and spiritually, and it had a really positive aspirations. So these first colonizators, as far as they explained to me, were called the Lemurians. They built tremendous cities on the surface of the planet, but they also drilled the planet, deep underground, a huge network which the legends now refer to as Agartha. So in the ancient Buddhist traditions, on the other hand, if you go in that direction, they were called the Arhats, or the enlightened ones, They were the supernatural beings, if you will, the acknowledgers of the supreme truth, untouched by evil, and very, very powerful. They have the insight into the true nature of existence and full access to the power of universal cosmic force, if you will. So this vast underground world, if you will, Agartha, it was illuminated by an inner source of light and heat that made the life possible at all, And from what the Sanskrit texts are also telling us, the Agartha was governed by the so-called king of the world, or the Brahmatma. Some other texts are referring as a Manu, but if you search through the Theosophic, literature, you can find the Sanat Kumara, and other terms. But in every of those traditions, one thing is common. This being was so powerful that it was universal legislator, if you will, a mediator between the ancient humanoids and the divinity. In other words, it was capable to communicate, to speak with that super cosmic consciousness that I was referring before. And it was literally preparing the entire species for the jump from the physical existence to the immaterial existence. So he was assisted by two figures, Mahatma, that was able to predict the things, and Mahagma, that make them true, if you will, The language that was spoken in Agartha was called Vatanan, which is a secret language that was a precursor of what today we refer as ancient Sanskrit, and it was far more complex and profound. The capital of this Lemurians, if you will, was known as Shambhala, and the literal translation from the ancient Sanskrit means white island. So it was a white island city, if you will, that existed in what today it's called Gobi Desert, if you will, which is completely, under sand, if you will. So as far as they have shown me, and what I was seeing, I was just quite stunned, if you will. They had kilometers tall building, roads that levitate in air, Vimanas or super advanced technological flying crafts, or various sizes and purposes that were capable of moving extremely fast without making absolutely no sound at all. It was like a magnificence in motion, if you will, So the main source, as far as I was explained, of power was plasma energy. And under the capital would flow rivers of energy whose beneficial fluids could reach the ancient Lemurian citizens, other Agarthian citizens of the vast planetary underground network. It was quite remarkable, And it is interesting that they were using what we call today artificial intelligence. Unfortunately, nowadays we are using it in a negative way, which I will explain as further as we go. But in those days, artificial intelligence was used practically everything. From Vimanas to simple opening and closing doors, and simpler things, everything was controlled through thoughts and artificial intelligence that was designed and programmed on the moral principles, if you will. So those were the times when the earth was practically flourishing with abundance of love, harmony, and peaceful coexistence. As far as I was asking about the propulsion system, because that was part of my interest, how those spaceships actually navigate, and what kind of propulsion system they're using. And they said that they had many different ones, but one that particularly, caught my attention was they were saying that their anti-gravitational interstellar spaceships had propulsion system based analogous to that of Lakhima. And this is a supernatural power attained through a spiritual practice known as Siddhi. In other words, what the masters of the force, if you will, can utilize, and as an energy source, it can last forever, if you will. So this supernatural power of consciousness, if you will, once when properly awakened and cultivated, gave the ancient Lemurians a centrifugal force strong enough to counteract all gravitational pull. And it is the same Lakhima which enabled them to physically levitate. So nowadays it's a very limited skills, but some of the yogis are able to physically levitate. They're using the same Lakhima force that I'm referring. So they also had the knowledge of the so-called mantrika, or the science of the sound, which completely were utilizing vibrations that can not just alter matter, but can also alter the fabric of space-time continuum. It was just quite remarkable. But if you start to realize, and you start to search, you do the research where those ancient temples, Buddhistic temples, are mostly positioned, you can see that they can be found in Sri Lanka, in India, in Pakistan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Mongolia, in China, North Korea, Philippines, Indonesia to some degrees, Malaysia, Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, so on and so forth. That's where most of the Lemurians were stationary. But the thing is, it goes more further than this. And those Lemurians were genetically different. They had long ears, they had a spike that was growing, from the top of their head and similar things. They were not consuming water or food at all. They were living on prana. They were charging of a living force that was in abundance in those days, if you will, through those pagodas, if you will, that are usually visible on the ancient Buddhistic temples. They knew exactly which posture of the body, produces certain effects in the consciousness, and they knew exactly how to combine the consciousness, if you will. So in many of the ancient temples that I was studying according to what they were showing me, and then doing my own homework, so to speak, I noticed that there was electromagnetic devices on top of their heads. In other words, those devices were utilizing power to suck the astral body out. In other words, to pull the consciousness in the astral body out and then combining them into oneness. And when hundreds of ancient Lemurians were meditating, together, they were utilizing this oneness. They were able to do group astral travels, not just from dimension to dimension, but also from one part of the cosmos to another. Far more powerful together. Another interesting thing, which is very important to mention, if you recall the pyramids in China, the Shahi pyramids, right? Which are famous around the world. Interesting shape is that on the top there is like a flat surface. And that flat surface, the deities explained to me that it was like a landing grounds for the Vimanas. And another interesting part of the puzzle comes from the Jaisalmer temple in India, where it's showing the same type of pyramid, which has a flat top, if you will. There's like a grail on the top, but it's not a grail, it's a capacitor, and also they were utilizing bells, that mantrika that I was referring. So as they were tuning into global meditation, into group meditation, they started chanting, certain mantras, certain vibration, vocal vibration that were amplified by those bells that we are seeing, like in Borobudur temple and other places around the world. And they were igniting, ionizing the air, and practically they were generating plasma energy. And that capacitor, which is on the top of the pyramid, just below the flat surface, if you will, that's where the Vimana was coming and charging from it. So probably the listeners would have better understanding, when if they check my online presentations online. But regarding to the variety of genetics, these beings, some of them were half humanoid, half snake. They were called Nagas. They had more arms, more legs, 3 eyes, different body sizes. Some of the body sizes were huge, gigantic, probably over 20 meters, so to speak, because the life force or the prana itself, in those days was different. For example, if you cut yourself nowadays, it will take a while until the wound heals. But in those days, if you cut yourself, it will heal in seconds, if you will. In other words, those beings were practically, how should I put it, very close to immortals. They were living for thousands of years, and they were very close to what I was describing, to the jump. But when they were very close, as far as I was explained, the ETs mentioned that the dark side of the universe started to mess things up. They started to send a different beings, if you will, which had a different intentions for planet Earth, if you will, and the entire solar system. So between, let's say, 25,000 years ago and 20,000 years ago, the newcomers, they start to come into the solar system, and especially on planet Earth, they started to populate more what the region of Africa, Europe, and United States to some degree. It's
I'm going to get you to hold on right there, because we are going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. Pane Andov explaining what is going on in our universe here on Spaced Out Radio. We continue with Pane right after this. Good job, buddy.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's different, and it's a lot of information. As I mentioned, the time is always an issue for me, because in order to understand things properly, you have to observe from different angles. And when different angles are put into the puzzle, you start to see the picture, Otherwise, if you're just observing from one or two, perspectives, you can't see exactly what is happening, But we have another 1 hour or
yeah, we have 1
minutes?
hour.
All right, cool. So I will try to speed up a bit,
I think you're doing great. I think people are getting the message, man. You're making my job easy tonight.
Yeah, that's it. Thanks for having me, Dave. Well, appreciate it.
No worries. No worries.
Yeah. So it's quite remarkable what is happening. But if we don't understand what took place thousands of years, in the solar system and in the planet, we can't understand how things got to this stage. In my understanding, simple as that, because you are missing a huge swaths of our ancient history.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's great.
Yeah, so we will see. I will try to speed up the processes. So at the end, I want to talk about the COVID and that kind of stuff, the artificial intelligence. Is that okay, or you want me to avoid that topic? It's
Which
a bit,
topic?
let's say about the vaccines.
Yeah, no, we're not going. I can't go there.
You can't go there. All right,
No,
cool.
it's just there's two things that I don't talk about. I don't talk about what's going on with COVID because a lot of our listeners are sick of it, and this is their break. And number two, we
Gotcha.
don't talk politics.
Got you. No, it's not about politics. It's about the globalists. But that's right. I got you. It's good that I ask. Otherwise I would probably turn that turn, and go in that direction. But it's good that I ask. Appreciate that.
Yeah, no worries. No worries.
Oh, here it's humid. So much hot. So how are we with the listeners? We're still having a good audience, huh?
1 second. All right, we've got about 2 minutes here. 2 minutes.
Okay.
What time is it over there right now?
4:30 p.m., Dave.
Oh, wow. Still early for you.
Yeah, it's still early.
4:30, so you are 12. You're 18 hours ahead of me.
Yeah, 18 hours, yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah. If you look more further than us, it's New Zealand, so let me put it that way. So they're ahead of us, so. I have another radio in 2 days, and then another radio in week and a half, I believe, and then another radio in February late. So look, the information is spreading, so then it's up to the people to do their own research, so to speak, and to make their own decisions, so to speak.
All right. Here we go, guys. We past the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Thank you so much for tuning us in. Dave Scott is my name. Sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. Glad to have you all tuned in. Want to remind you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight with author, researcher, editor, Pane Andov. You can find all of his books on Amazon.com, where he has just a plethora of reading material for you. Highly recommend it. Pane, welcome back.
Thank you, Dave. So, as mentioned, as the Lemurians were ready for the quantum jump, or evolution of their species, so to speak, the negative force, unfortunately, starts sending, different beings that were not so positive. So between 25,000 years ago and about 20,000 years ago, as far as I was explaining, other beings started rapidly colonizing Earth, and it moved more towards what today it's Africa, Europe, and part of United States, if you will. So the genetics of these visitors was very different from the ancient Lemurians. Their culture and their way of living was also very different. They have elongated skulls, different body sizes and different intellect, and they were very, very powerful, And these newcomers, they lived on a principle that superior species with certain bloodlines have a natural right to rule above other species. Instead of equality for all, as the Lemurians were practicing, if you will, and exercising, they preferred the rule of the stronger and the more powerful. So the mythological beings that we are seeing using nanotechnology, like half human, half dog and similar things, they were existing in those days because life does exist. These newcomers were also utilizing, unfortunately, the dark power of the flower of life, if you will, energy field. The flower of life energy field can be used both for good and for negative purposes. Explain in my books, some of my books, and still at the time when these newcomers start to arrive, there was kind of like a coexistence because the Lemurians started to backing off from the region where the colonizers were actually coming. So using diplomacy at first, and then slowly introducing technological manipulation and other dark means, if you will, these visitors continued to negatively influence many of the Asian citizens throughout the solar system, including the leaders of the so-called Atlantis, because the colony that they established, it was called Atlantis, and its peak was around 15,000 years ago, if you will. And these leaders of the Atlantis were also deceived by the negative type 2 extraterrestrials, because they promised them that they will rule the entire solar system, but it ended up completely differently, if you will. And the walls of ancient Egypt and everything else, because ancient Egyptian culture is practically a colony from Atlantis, descendants from the Atlantis. In some of their walls, you can clearly see the depiction of the violence towards the animal and the human how should I put it, opponent, so to speak. So much going on, if you will, in that society. But long story short, some of those beings that came, later, they were like a ruling class, certain bloodlines and everything else. Something very similar, which is happening nowadays through the secret societies, if you will. And the entire region of Atlantis was far more different from what the mainstream is actually telling us, that it doesn't exist, that it's a mythological kingdom and so on and so forth. It practically existed in most of the area where today Atlantic was. The capital was inside Mauritania, if you will, and that's the blue eye of the Sahara. That's where the capital of the city was. And regarding to some reference, if you will, from the history, it's interesting, the Herodotus map from 450 BC is clearly showing, when you go from Arabia to Libya, it just points towards the Atlantis, where the eye of the Sahara is, if you like. So the capital of Atlantis, as far as I was explain and show, was exactly in this region, what today is Sahara. Another reference which could be also interesting to the people is that Plato also mentioned this the civilization. He's saying that there were alternative zones of sea and land, larger and smaller, encircling one another. There were 2 of land and 3 of water, which were turned as if outlets, each having a circumstance, equivalent to every form of the center. In other words, what he described as a size of this Atlantis in the stadia, form, and one stadia equals 607 feet, if you will. So when you calculate all that measurements that he left, it's perfectly matching the size of the Richard or the eye of the Sahara, if you will. But if you zoom out today and you see, the entire area of Sahara from space, you can see exactly where the sand and the tsunami went through. About 12,000 years ago, the land in today's Mauritania was about 300 meters lower, if you will, and the entire area around the Eye of the Africa was underwater. And for evidence, you can search in the Black Desert of Egypt, in Hogar in Algeria, the Valley of the Whales in western Egypt, if you will, White Desert in Egypt also, and it's all there. So to continue from what I was describing before, as these visitors entered the solar system and pushing, more and more towards the conflict, it eventually exploded about 11,600 years ago. So which means that's where the war practically began. That's the war where the legends are also saying very terrible weapons were utilized, and on the solar system scale, if you will. Many of the craters that we are seeing nowadays around the planet, they have absolutely no evidence of meteorites or asteroids, no evidence whatsoever. But there are certain areas where there is certain glass that was found, which indicates atomic blasts, or completely craters with absolutely no evidence of impact at all. But it was impacted either by plasma energy discharge or some other sophisticated weapon. And it's quite remarkable that they were also showing me that those found stone balls around the world, especially in Costa Rica and other places, they were utilized and weaponized to a very high degree. In other words, they were utilizing electric currents and magnetism, so to speak, to combine those balls or stone balls, if you will, into one groupation, or sometimes or 3, 4, 5, of them, and then they were sent to the enemy location, and then it was literally discharged, and it was melting the structure and everything, which is quite evidence that we are seeing that some of the ancient temples are half melted or vitrified, if you will, And then when I started to do my own research according to what they were saying, I started to research the composition of some of those stone balls that were found, in New Zealand, in other places. And I found that the material which exists inside those stone balls, partly, on one part, it conducts electrical current, on the other part, it's actually insulator, which produces a perfect environment for the capacitor, which again supports what I just mentioned before. These capacitors were literally utilizing the plasma force, and when they were discharged towards the area of the enemy state, so to speak, they literally melted everything. And when this tsunami practically happened, so to speak, many of those stone balls literally fall down from the sky, and they ended up deep in the mud, deep in the forest, wherever it took the place. And there is one even interesting occurrence that I was researching in Chechnya. There was a stone ball that literally melted the rock, deep inside, and as soon as it actually cooled down, that's where it actually stayed. And it's quite remarkable what was happening, not to mention the vitrified layers found in different areas in Africa, or the yellow glass, which again, it's the same resemblance what we have today's nuclear test sites, if you will. So the interplanetary conflict for dominance in the solar system, which occurred, 11,600 years ago was fought on a different levels, and it was orchestrated by the dark Type 2 and Type 3 extraterrestrial civilization. Unfortunately, the entire conflict in those days ended brutally. The planet that was once orbiting between the Mars and Jupiter with one plasma beam energy, if you will, was destroyed. Once it was destroyed, the entire gravitational pull of the sun, if you will, have loosened its gravitational pull, so to speak. It lost the gravity, and that unfortunately produced a geological pole shift. Not just one, but a couple of those until that short time interval until the gravity was reestablished, if you will. In other words, the water in the ocean went out of the control. So we have seen in 2011 in Fukushima what tsunami, which is 40 meters high, can do. Imagine tsunamis that are, let's say, 3, 4, 5 kilometers, tall, what kind of destructive power they have. So due to the gravitational imbalance, the planet became chaotic, if you will. The water in the ocean flipped over, which resulted, as mentioned, with huge tsunamis, and literally they were destroying everything on its path. Today's the monument in south of Japan, in Okinawa, the so-called Yonaguni monument, is clearly stating, about those days, and even the marine geologist Masaki Kimura from Japan, he was also saying that the reference is about 12,000 years ago, but then the Smithsonian Institute came forward and they said, look, this is not accurate. But as I mentioned, they are suppressing the existence of the UFOs. They are suppressing, the existence of giants in the Asian past, the Asian civilizations, and many other things. But obviously, what I'm trying to say is that this unbalanced environment, how far fetched it sounds, how is in contrast with the mainstream archaeology, produced a very strong force to the tectonic plates. In other words, this extreme pressure caused, some certain part of the planet, to create gaps in the Earth crust. So the mid-Atlantic ridge, actually, which according to the mainstream academia, which occurred around 200 million years ago, actually occurred 11,600 years ago, far more recently what they're saying. And this epic earthquake, if you will, was strong enough, to literally destroy whatever was left from the previous conflict that were, as mentioned, many kind of atomic weapons, plasma discharges, all the stuff that was used. And to support this, if someone research, the geological faults, in the lower Ugap Valley in Namibia, we are talking about 15, 20 per Richter scale. And even if you go in the Nazca Desert and you see, let's say, the display mountains formation that are ignored from the general archaeology, for example, you have a road, and then half a kilometer further away, that road continues. And in between, there's like a mountain ripples, if you will, which means there was a strong force that actually was impacting the surface of the planet. What I'm trying to say is that for the Atlantis, it was all over in the last of the days. So the Atlanteans that survived the Great Flood, they became occupied by the Dark II civilization, and they become their rulers, unfortunately. And we have the evidence, for example, the lost city of Cuba, which was discovered in July in 2000. If you remember, we are talking about really, really interesting stuff, because the marine explorers that were probing the ocean floor, they discovered something completely unprecedented, unexpected, deep below the surface. And the video of evidence, taken from the unmanned submersible robot, if you will, at the depth of 600 to 700 meters, they revealed 3.1 square kilometers expanse of ancient stone structures, or of a vast underwater city. We're talking about roads, buildings, pyramids, you name it, and it was called the Lost City of Cuba. And we are talking about 750 meters deep. And this is all documented. One can research, so it's very close to the Gulf of Mexico, if you will, In other words, as the water disturbance literally went through, the whole chaos was unleashed. Many people also ask me, how did the pyramids survive if this was so powerful? But the explanation is very simple. Because as the water in the ocean, now we have the legends of the Great Flood, if you will, as the water went through certain regions. If you observe the Egypt and that area, if you see the area around, let's say, Egypt, and the New Valley, so to speak, it's about 130 meters below the sea level. But further down towards the Red Sea and so on and so forth, and if you observe, let's say, the Gulf of Aqaba, we have an opposite situation. We have 2,629 meters above the sea level. In other words, the entire area tilted. And as these pyramids that were along the Nile River, so to speak, they escaped the major tsunamis, if you will. And that's how otherwise the pyramids are built far beyond the 4,000 or 5,000 years ago as the mainstream archaeology is pushing, if you will. And there was also a found city about 6.5 km, of the coast of Alexandria, which, they literally brought to the surface Egyptian culture, statues and that kind of stuff. But to continue further, as this planet, which was orbiting between Mars and Jupiter, was destroyed, a huge chunks of asteroids were literally scattered everywhere. Even nowadays, it's a mess when you go and you approach the asteroid belt. Some of those huge pieces literally hit directly what we call today Mars, and left a huge scar, if you will, on the surface. The water, the oceans that were there in those days, as I mentioned, because when the colonizators came, they literally produced a huge technological and biological compatible environment, and literally destroyed the planet, what the compatibility for the biological existence is concerned. In other words, there was so much dust that it blocked the sun for a short interval of time, and the temperatures dropped. So when we see the geological records, practically those were the days when temperatures drastically dropped, and it was like a mini ice age, if you will. But over time, through the extraterrestrial effort and the Asian humanoids, so to speak, who survived, they cleaned the area, and they literally rebuilt the world to some degree on the principle on the old ones. But this time, the extraterrestrials were in control, especially species from the Orion constellation, if you will. And if you see in the Egypt tradition, you can see sometimes as the ancient Egyptians are giving gifts to the alien beings, like a bird and similar things. So it's all well documented, and in contrast, because our moon, it's a mystery. It's supposed to be there, and also another thing which is a mystery, why it's faced with only one side towards us. Why we can only see one side of the moon, not the dark side of the moon. Because it's an artificial satellite. It was brought in those days for surveillance and for control, something which I will address in the last part, how it practically works. So the cultures, according to what they have shown me, that survived the devastation, they rebuilt the new world based on the principles on the old one. And different cultures continued to coexist about 7,600 years ago, if you will. So from the Great Flood onwards, what happened with Shambhala, right? What happened with Lemuria? So if you look at Tibet nowadays, Tibet is quite remarkable because the Tibetan plateau, it has around 787 lakes, and many of those are salt lakes. So what is salt water doing that inland? Do you know what I'm saying? So the thing is, it's quite remarkable where those tsunamis went, and the Shambhala on the surface was completely destroyed. And then the Asian Rama, so to speak, that I was referring previously, that we can see some of the remains in the pyramids and temples and Buddha statues and so forth. It's all that remain in that part of the planet. What is also remarkable is that both the Buddhist and the Hindu religions, they separately refer to Agartha, and the Ramayana describes Rama as an emissary from Agartha who arrived in the air vehicle or Vimana, if you will, and they literally had the same principles of life. They were utilizing pagodas to generate the energy, and that energy was directly linked to the meditative places, and they were not drinking or eating food at all. They were literally living on prana, and they were practicing those, how should I put it, the global meditation. So Asians were not primitive at all, as the mainstream academia is trying to convince us. There are many documentaries on History Channel or National Geographic where they are showing us, how a huge number of people, just lugging, huge stones and then putting them all together. It doesn't work like that, So among other, the following advanced technologies were used by ancient Egyptian civilization. Electricity, that's for sure, electrochemistry, electromagnetic technology, plasma energetics, metallurgy, advanced engineering, hydrogeology, chemistry, physics, advanced forms of mathematics, astronomy, genetics, anti-gravity, nanotechnology. And this list is not over yet, so to speak. So when you start to see stones like the stones in Baalbek in Lebanon, we are talking about over 1,000 tons, and you can see those people which are sitting, So obviously, this was not done by a primitive civilization, if you will. Just to move one stone of a similar size, we need at least 10 to 12 cranes working in parallel, in synchronization, just to move it from one side 10 meters, on the other side. And in order to make precise cuts, so to speak, we have to use a very big machinery, powerful machinery, if you will. And even to transport with our vehicles, even 1/3 of that side, we are struggling because it's simply very, very, very heavy. And also the one in Brazil, in Paraíba, and you can see like a stones which are practically put one above each other, like a wooden baskets. It's just incredible what is happening. And from the temples of India, you can see the metallurgy, how it was cut, and the 3D printing, and everywhere. It's just remarkable. And regarding to the Great Pyramids in Giza, we're talking about 2,300,000 stone blocks, and most of them weigh between 2 and 30 tons each. And certain block, sometimes they weigh even from 50 to 80 tons. We are having an estimate of something like 6.5 million tons, if you will, So was it a tomb? No, it wasn't. Because the Great Pyramid in Giza and many other pyramids, they don't have the characteristic of the tomb. They were power plants. In other words, all of those pyramids, they were positioned of the underground water or aquifers. They were utilizing water, and through those shafts from the bottom of the pyramid, they were taken up and then utilized through heating into evaporation and then further heating into plasma. So this plasma energy that was accumulated, because you can see by the king's chamber, there is absolutely no drawings, no paintings at all, but the entire stuff is clearly showing exposure to very extreme heats, if you will. That's why I'm saying it's much better, when people see it visually. And obviously, we are talking about advanced culture. And if we consider, just for the last example, the Serapeum of Saqqara.
Save that for the break, because we do have to go to break here at the top of the hour here on Spaced Out Radio. We got 1 hour left in hour number 3 of the mighty SOR. Our guest tonight, Pane Andov, will be with us for another 30 minutes. Then we're going to get to the SOR News Wire and the Thought of the Day. Stay tuned. Plenty of Spaced Out Radio still underway right after this. All right, I'm just going to run my dogs out. I'll be right back.
Okay.
I'm feeling a little spicy tonight. What to do?
Why not get Bumblefuck?
4 million Scoville units of pure hard rock. Bumblefoot hot sauces come in 3 flavors. The burning Bumble. Tone it down a bit with Bumblicious and throw the sauce on everything.
Spice it up. Bumble me, baby. Bumblefoot hot sauce. Get it today at kajans.com.
The SOR vault is open for business, and we may have some cool swag for you to pick up. All you have to do is head over to our website and click on the SOR Vault. You have a variety of cool logos to choose from, and put them on anything you want. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, coffee mugs, you name it, we can get it to you. So do your shopping by supporting the store you love. Get your Spaced Out Radio swag at the SOR Vault today.
Take it from the top. Go!
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at MightyMooseBeard.com today.
Looking for creative ways to get your company out in the public? How about advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Our sales department is waiting to hear from you, and we can work around any budget. From commercial spots to banners to special promotions, there are many opportunities to get your name and product out to our SOR listeners. For a price guide and more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
We're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Beckard, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world, relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio, and while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
The party is always on. The Moose Van Cleaver is where you know you can visit Canada's West Coast. Open until 2 a.m. nightly. The Moose runs at the Rock while serving some of the best rated food in the city. The menu starts at $6.95. Why party anywhere else in Vancouver when the Moose is right? Get your horns up and rock with the Moose, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Okie dokie, buddy.
So we got
Right.
we got till the bottom of the hour. Just stick through the break, and then I'll say good night to you on a proper note.
Okay, so how much time do I have still left?
About
left?
23 and a half, 24 minutes.
That's all that I'm having, right?
Yeah.
All right, cool. I will just quickly go through that part, and I will stick with alien implants then and that kind of stuff, which is also important to mention. You know?
For sure.
No, this is a long and a lot of information, you know, and it requires a visual, you know. It's different when it's visual. You can see it, you know. Otherwise, you know, people take it from their own perspective, you know. Sometimes they have a research, you know. Sometimes they don't have the research that they have done in the past, you know. But it's good. I believe it will give them some idea where to look further, you know.
Oh, for sure. We've got just over a minute here.
Okay.
All right, I want to say a big thank you to Fapster ×2, John and Cat Chaser for the Super Chats tonight. Really do appreciate your love and support of Spaced Out Radio. It means the world to us here. And thank you to everyone who's given us a thumbs up tonight and everyone who's enjoying the show. Appreciate it. Don't forget you can do a little shopping for some Spaced Out Radio swag by going to facebook.com/Spaced Out, the SOR Vault, and get your T-shirts there. And here we go. Dave Scott, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. I want to remind you that we really do appreciate everyone tuned in to our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, KPNL, and Revolution Radio. All of our archives are free for you by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. What do you got for us, Clam? Halalimnik. Halalimnik is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. For the final time tonight, we introduce our guest, Pane Andov. He is an author, where you can find all of his books on Amazon. Pane, welcome back.
Thank you, Dave. So, as mentioned, there were two conflicts. One was, as mentioned, 11,600 years ago, which devastated the Atlantis and Lemuria. Whatever was left, the world was rebuilt to some degree, and there was a certain coexistence, if you will, for another 7,000 years plus. So about 4,000 years ago, the extraterrestrials that were responsible and that were orchestrating the first conflict, they engaged a second conflict, and this is the conflict that Mahabharata and Ramayana are also referring about. There was a huge devastation, whatever was left from those seven holy rishi cities, if you will, it was all destroyed from Mohenjo-daro and other places. There was so much destruction, if you will. So when you start to explore, the Sodom and Gomorrah, the Oklo, Africa, you can see the evidence of the atomic blasts, and it's quite remarkable that even in Peru there is so much vitrified, Asian objects. And quite remarkable, the so-called Lion Rock in Sri Lanka, it's also giving us a clear, clue that the weapons that were utilized in those days were extremely, extreme heat that literally melted the entire structure, if you like. And probably most of the listeners are aware about the Sri Rama Bridge, if you will, the bridge which is artificially created by the Asians, which connects India and Sri Lanka. The particular interesting thing is that the rocks on the top of the sand actually predate the sand. One scientific study revealed that the rocks are 7,000 years old, but they're sitting on the top of the sand that is only 4,000 years old, which doesn't make any sense, if you will. And another thing which is quite interesting from China, they are saying that about 4,000 years old Chinese legend of the flood comes to reality when the new evidence has been provided. Mesopotamia and the Sumer, on the other hand, they're saying that the oldest written copy of the Sumerian flood record dates about 4,000 years ago, while the oldest written copy of the Epic of Gilgamesh, if you will, also, it's dated to 4,000 years ago. National Geographic came recently, and they are saying that the Egyptian culture actually vanished 4,000 years ago again, but this time the reason was given as a megadrought, if you will. It says Asian megadrought causes present-day drama, for the Asian Egyptians, if you will. The Fox News, on the other hand, they're also saying about the civilization in India, the Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, Lothal, and similar. They're saying that 4,000 years ago, climate change this time caused a massive civilization collapse. Which again, if you go further and further, you can find the same evidence, the reference. So what I'm trying to say, this second conflict also induced a big tsunamis and water disturbance. And That's why when the pyramids were discovered, they were discovered almost fully under the sand, so to speak. When you start to see Chichen Itza, Tikal, they were all inundated with ground, with soil, something in deep jungles, and even the Egyptian, the so-called unfinished pyramids, they are not unfinished, they are destroyed pyramids. It's just they are looking at us, if you will. It's quite remarkable what is happening. And when this was on the case, the thing is, literally the genetic functionality of planet Earth was downgraded. So I'm not talking about extermination of Asian humanoids by negative extraterrestrial, but also the planetary conditions were changed, and deliberate genetic downgrade of all biology on planet Earth was implemented. After the genetic mutation, the Asian humanoids became us, the modern humans. There were no longer elongated skulls, no longer more arms, more legs, and so on and so forth. If you start researching, the estimated world population about 4,000 years ago was only 27 million, which further progressed and multiplied, let's say, for example, 1000 BC to 50 million, 1500 AD, 540 million, and 2020 about 7.8 billion of human population. And this genetic mutation practically brought us from the triple or quadruple DNA into double helix DNA, which means only 5 senses input most of us, and the higher abilities of the consciousness disconnected, if you will. So practically with wiping out the Rama, the ancient Egyptian civilization, the pre-Columbian civilization, the ancient Sumer, Babylon, and the rest of the humanoids that lived in those days with atomic weapons, supercharged plasma bombs, and many other weapons for mass destruction, if you will, the world literally collapsed into the dark ages. And from there, we literally are species with amnesia. In other words, the Earth lost its optimal genetic expression. So what is optimal genetic expression? It's the best what the RNA or DNA can provide. The gigantism was no longer possible. Trees didn't grow that tall anymore. The sea life shrank. The birds, the size of the birds shrank. The size of the insects shrank. Everything shrank, and we have forgotten our ancient history. And from 4,000 years onwards, we were running naked in woods, with sticks and arrows, seeing those lights coming, appearing, and going on the night sky. We didn't know what to make of it. Then as we progressed to the Middle Age, we went into the Dark Ages, where the religious wars appeared and so on and so forth, and eventually we became more aware of the UFOs during the World War I and World War II. Especially in World War II, there are many objects that were detected that they have flying capabilities far beyond our own, so to speak, and they were called either Foo Fighters or bogies, so to speak, And in those days, the military, especially in US, if you will, decided that it's better to keep the UFO interaction and contact secret. So they started to lie, so to speak. There was a huge cover-up. And if we all remember, the incident that happened on July 12th in 1952, we had a huge cluster of UFOs flying above the White House. So they had a really difficult time to erase that from the memory of the people, not to mention the cattle mutilation, scenarios and similar things. And obviously those interactions continue to appear. So bottom line, before I just go to the final part, the hyper-intelligent alien species are here for a very long time. But for the last 4,000 years, as explained, they have turned this planet into a elaborate zoo. They run alien abduction programs, alien implant programs, alien hybridization programs, mind control, plasma orb surveillance, and hacking and full control of the astral plane of the planet Earth for various reasons. So, regarding to the research about the alien implants, I would definitely like to share a few things
Sure.
about it. So the research have shown that many nanotechnological alien implants are not broadcasting in this electromagnetic spectrum at all, but they're using the so-called scalar waves technology. Therefore, when we use our technological devices, for example, to pick up a radio wave from the alien implant, we're actually reading a harmonic. So some of these nanotechnological devices are so small that when a scanning electron microscopy is applied, it shows that the nerve cells actually grow into the membrane, which forms the interface between the nervous system of the abductee and the electronics of the alien implant. Depending on who is doing the alien implants, they can be either metallic, non-metallic, or biological. If they are biological, they can sometimes move under the skin, which are very difficult to detect. But if there is a metallic one, they always contain meteoric iron with combinations with other elements. For the detection of the alien implants, sometimes ultraviolet light is used in case there was a touching of the aliens, to the physical body of the human being. Stud finder, for the metal detection, if we're talking about a metal alien implant, or eventually a Gauss meter to detect eventual magnetic field. But one has to be aware that if the alien implant doesn't receive information or doesn't sense information, if you will, at that particular point, there will be almost non-existent magnetic field. It only appears when it's active. Another thing is that the research about their molecular structure and their nanotechnological makeup, so to speak, different techniques were used, like electron microscopy, Raman spectroscopy, and infrared spectrometry, if you will, which are very sophisticated techniques, if you will. So what I'm trying to say with this is that the research have shown that the alien implants are practically sophisticated nanotechnological devices, giving off a magnetic field and emitting radio signals before removal to someone. And many of them contain carbon nanotubes. In other words, we are dealing with nanotechnological devices with nanocarbon tubes, either single or double wall.
Hello there from Puyallup, where the mystery continues. There's a little pandemic paranormal perspective from Puyallup,
which are regular rectangular structures. And sometimes the membrane itself, before the alien implant is removed, especially Dr. Roger Lear was into that research. Unfortunately, we lost him in 2014. When the membrane is released, we can see that the nanotechnology which is fused with the nervous system. In other words, through the alien implants, the aliens can access the sensory information of the abductee and observe everything the person sees, hears, smells, tastes, touches, etc. Can read the heart pulse and the blood pressure, practically all the biological processes inside the physical body. Can alter the DNA, read the thoughts and sense the emotion, and remotely control the awakened and the sleeping state of abductee. Can do practically anything they want. Some of the frequencies which are measured from the alien objects that were extracted from human subjects, they were emitting a broadcast on 8 Hz, some on 14.7 megahertz, other on 17 megahertz, other one 110 megahertz, 137.7 megahertz, and so on and so forth. So we are seeing a wide spectrum, so to speak, of the frequency which are utilized. Regarding to the hybridization programs, unfortunately, we are having evidence that many of the female subjects literally have been visited and has been utilized for hybridization purposes. The most famous case is the case of the Giovanna Pola, so to speak, from Italy. And according to her testimony and what was discovered, she was at least 18 times impregnated by the extraterrestrial beings. And even she on one of the private television, she actually agreed to do abortion, where a so-called reptoid creature was taken out of her body. With her mobile phone, she took many photos of the UFOs and flying discs, and those bioluminescence marks that I was saying that ultraviolet light was sometimes utilized was also discovered. And when the substance of this markings, if you will, was analyzed, in one of the laboratories in an institute in Bologna, in Italy. It turned out that it's not natural at all, but it's highly magnetic on the other hand. It was a kind of a silic substance with a mica base. It didn't contain any nitrate or phosphor that could give its phosphorescence, if you will, in a natural way, but it was found that the electrons of the substance are excited like their structure was artificially modified to give a big magnetic field. I don't know if that makes any sense. What I'm trying to say, most of the hybrids are taken from the sac before the 20th week. So which means usually from the 7th to the 9th or 12th week, they're gone. They can go and check, for pregnancy, the fetus is there, and then it magically disappears, and it's quite remarkable what is happening. The NSA, the other organizations, and projects, also DARPA, through accelerating the third wave, and so on and so forth, the artificial intelligence, it's all dealing with those kind of things. Another important thing, which is important also to mention, not to be forgotten, is about the case of the retired U.S. Staff Surgeon Dan Sherman. He spent 12 years in service of the U.S. Air Force, out of which 3 years in NSA, and his testimony was given in the book Above Black, highly recommended for people who are interested into the subject. I spoke with Dan Sherman 10 years ago, and he explained to me exactly what was doing, and he was saying that he worked there as an intuitive communicator, which stands for ability to communicate with extraterrestrials through intuitive manipulation of consciousness, and he was part of the project that was known Project Preserve Destiny. In other words, this project was dealing with genetical manipulation of the human offspring, so they would have the ability to communicate with the alien species. They were being given a certain pills to drink with certain chemicals that triggers the hyperactivity of the pineal gland and other centers in the brain. And once when the communication started to occur, he started to notice a very unpleasant pattern, which means they were able to utilize the coordinates of the alien abduction, the time and the date of the alien abduction, and how long did it took. But that wasn't all. The military started to receive data like potentially for recall, residual pain, nerve response curve, body normalization, and similar things. That's when he freaked out and he get out from the military, because he felt betrayed, that unfortunately the U.S. shadow government, if you will, it's not honest with citizens, that they know about the existence of the other living forms, which are implanting human subjects, if you will, human beings without their consent, and taking them occasionally for certain different protocols. Many of these things are explained in my book Alien Implants, hacking the alien internet, if you will, that one can find. So another thing which is important to mention in parallel regarding to the cattle mutilation. In 1972, a close examination showed that 5 bizarre cattle mutilations were marked with powdery white substance and were glowing when they were exposed to ultraviolet light, the same as I was explaining before. And the lab test from control sample of removed hair from the glowing region showed a high percentage of potassium and magnesium, which means we are talking about a deliberate pickup of a certain livestock, if you will. So these alien implants are practically broadcasting to moon, sometimes directly, sometimes through the UFO. And in many occasions, when I was doing the research about the mysterious hum sound when people enter the sleeping paralysis, sometimes just entering from the conscious state, as soon as a UFO comes and enters the atmosphere of planet Earth and goes deeper towards the surface, it starts to produce certain frequencies, and then the alien implant practically becomes alive, if you will, and it starts to produce these emanations or these effects, if you will, right? And the more I was doing the astral traveling, I understood that most of the dreams are practically induced by the non-human or immaterial intelligences. We're talking about holographic projections, which are transmitted from non-thermal plasmas, or what we call orbs, which are filmed on the infrared or night vision cameras, controlled via extraterrestrial immaterial artificial intelligence, if you will, software, which is transmitted from the Saturn and Moon matrix. It's quite remarkable what is happening in the world. So people often ask me, how can we identify the positive from the negative UFOs? Which UFOs are piloted by the negative ones, which are piloted by the positive, which one are the human-made, which one are the back-engineered one, and so on and so forth. So to identify to which UFO belongs to which ET species is very difficult, because many factors are in play. In my understanding, we're talking about color, we're talking about maneuver behavior, pulsation, plasma discharge, shape shifting or partial transformation. Was the UFO inside a thunderstorm? Was it alone or in a group? If in a group, on which harmonic of the Earth it was moving? Did it change the direction of the Earth's grid? Etc. There's so many factors at play. If you remember a very good book by Bruce Katie, so to speak, about harmonic, about the harmonics, that's really explained well. So many of those UFOs are solid objects with plasma energy shield around it. And so the ET species present in this solar system are using various propulsion systems, since more than 99% of the matter of the universe exists as plasma. Examples include stars, nebulas, interstellar particles, and so on and so forth, right? So also human shadow government has been progressively experimenting with plasma propulsion systems and back-engineered alien technology for at least 5 decades, progressively, So to distinguish which flying craft is piloted by humans and which is not, today it's become a really big skill, if you're in, right? So the beings that are piloting the UFO under the plasma shield can be friendly or positive, but can also be negative and very hostile, or simply neutral, if you will. So it's very difficult. So regarding to the propulsion system,
we only got about 45-50 seconds left.
All right, cool. So to summarize everything, we as a human species, we have to regenerate ourselves. We have to reawaken our potential, going beyond the 5 senses. And once when we go beyond the 5 senses, we will see an invisible universe, invisible hidden reality, which the 5 senses can't detect. Once when we start to see, we will see that we are not alone. We have never been alone. And from there, we will see what is going on. Once when we see what is going on, we will see that there is a problem in the solar system. And when that's going to happen, we will start to search for the solutions. So once when we find the solution, we will eventually break free. So that's my understanding of the subject, at least.
Pane Andov, thank you so much for coming on Spaced Out Radio tonight, showing us your testimony in everything that you've learned. We're quite educated because of it, my friend. Thank you.
You're most welcome. I really enjoyed it. It was a real pleasure chatting with you, Dave.
Yes, and me too, my friend. You can find all the Pane's books at Amazon.com. Coming up next, we have the SOR Newswire, the Thought of the Dave. Stay tuned. Spaced Out Radio continues right after this. Good job, my friend. Good job.
Thanks, Dave. It was a really a lot of information, So I think that we covered a lot of subjects, which is good,
Absolutely. Appreciate your time, and thank you for kicking off our first full week of 2021.
Absolutely a pleasure. I wish you all the best, Dave.
You
and
too.
Hopefully you reach 20,000 subscribers and more, mates. So just keep on pushing.
We're on our way. We are on our way. You take care, my friend.
So when will the interview be ready to be listened? Do you know?
Give it about 1 hour.
1 hour. Sounds really good.
All right, my
friend. Take care, brother, and
all
the best.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye. Bye.
I am Dave. I thought the guy was brilliant. Brilliant.
You can check out some of the hot sauces that we have.
It's right there for you. Newswire is a one-stop shop. Check it out. Radio.com today.
All right, a big thank you to Jenny, Fapster ×2, John, and Cat Chaser for the amazing super chats tonight. Really do appreciate your support of Spaced Out Radio. Thank you to all of our new subscribers, especially those who helped us roll over 10,000 yesterday. We don't squatch here. We don't squatch, Donnie. Triggered. Anyways, we're going to do the news here. Woo! All right, let's do this, eh? Hold on. Scott, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Want to remind you that if you've missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter @SpacedOutRadio and on Instagram @SpacedOutRadioShow. Speaking of the news. The news is always changing, which is why we bring you the SOR Newswire. At the back end of every show, we'll get to the weird, the strange, the wacky, and sometimes ufological. Yes, a Harvard professor says aliens did visit in 2017 and warns more are coming. But a bunch of Hawaiians say they're already here. Multiple people witnessed and videotaped a bright blue glowing object, oblong, unidentified flying object hovering above the skies of Oahu last Tuesday before it nosedived into the ocean, prompting them to call the FAA and 911. The sighting occurred at around 8:30 in the evening, and video shows a strange mass both in the sky and water. Yeah, Miss Atina Saint, who captured one of the videos, can be heard saying, "Something is in the sky. What is that?" Another woman named Mariah also saw the object passing over, and she says, "I look up and there was like, oh, crap." I started calling my husband and them because they were all in the garage. I was like, "Hey, come look at here. See if you see what I see." "Do you see what I see? A star, flashing in the night." Anyways, they all said, "Yeah, I don't know what that was, but that one was going pretty fast." Officials from the Federal Aviation Administration says there were no aircraft incidents or accidents in the area at the time, but multiple witnesses reported seeing a large blue object fall out of the sky and into the ocean. Mariah followed the UFO, which was silent, larger than a telephone pole, for a mile until it dropped into the sea. In one of her videos, she is heard saying, "It land in the water. It landed in the water," whatever it is. After officials and officers arrived, Mariah spotted a second light, which was white, coming from the same direction as the blue-lit object. "Do you see what I see?" My husband went, "Look up. Look way up." And he seen the white one coming as well. The white one was smaller, was coming in the same direction as the blue one. Yeah, don't know what happened to that one. That is good woo right there, people, all the way from Hawaii. "Do you see what I see?" Anyways, moving on. Yeah, here we go. Daffodil Bowl in Puyallup, Washington. Captain Shirk didn't think I knew how to say Puyallup. Has been around since the 1950s. Brad Schwartz took over ownership nearly 3 years ago and has recently learned something rather curious about his bowling alley. It's haunted. The previous owners of 22 years never mentioned that this place is known to have a ghost, said Schwartz. Schwartz works alongside his daughter Ashley and said that during the pandemic closure they have been able to personally confirm the rumors of paranormal activity on their lanes. Both were quick to say it's not something they've seen, but what they've consistently heard. Ashley said that as often as every 15 minutes they can hear a distinct sound of a ball being thrown down the lane. For the first time in decades, the bowling alley is nearly silent, and that makes the sound of the lone bowler more noticeable. After mentioning what they had been hearing to employees, it became clear that they were the last to know about the friendly ghost that refuses to leave Daffodil Bowl. Schwartz said just about every employee has a story or two about strange noises and occasional sightings, like bowling shoes flying off the shelves or cooking utensils dropping from the walls in the kitchen. An employee named Corey said she's been working at the alley for over 30 years and confirms she's had some personal encounters. "He comes up behind me and says my name. Sometimes he turns on the pin setters in the back as a way of letting me know he's here and to have a good day or something. The identity of this seemingly friendly ghost is in minor dispute. Many believe it's the spirit of a former loyal customer who died of a heart attack and died on Lane 1. That's where we usually hear the sound of the ball rolling. Lane 1, said Schwartz. Daffodil mechanic Larry Davidson has been on the job for more than a decade and says he has seen and heard many things that he has accepted as paranormal. I've figured, hunched over these machines for a long time. I've seen a dark figure walk into the back of the lanes when I'm the only one here at night and the doors are locked. Davidson believes the ghost is actually a former mechanic who had his very job for a long time before passing. The mechanic lived in a house that was just across the parking lot until the house was torn down last summer. Whether it's the former mechanic or a loyal bowler who frequent the lanes, everyone seems to agree that it's not a scary haunting. They've even nicknamed the ghost Daffodil Dawn in honor of his presence. Isn't that cool? Isn't that cool? Scary one here. The first sign something was wrong came Tuesday when Bahamian authorities reached out to the U.S. Coast Guard Southeast Division to alert them that 20 people aboard a blue and white 29-foot Mako Cuddy cabin vessel had gone missing in the Bermuda Triangle. The group, yet to be identified, was last known to have left Bimini on Monday en route to Lake Worth, the Coast Guard learned. They should have arrived that day, but something went wrong somewhere in the waters between Bahamas and South Florida, an area that encompasses the mythical and obviously known Bermuda Triangle, unofficially bounded by Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico, covering about 500,000 square miles of ocean off the southeast tip of Florida. On Friday, after searchers had about 84 hours in, covering more than 17,000 square miles, roughly the size of Massachusetts, the Coast Guard said, rescuers that included air stations from Miami and Clearwater suspended their search. Our thoughts and prayers go out to the families of the missing people, said Captain Stephen V. Burdian of the 7th District in a statement. I encourage anyone with information about the people aboard to contact us as soon as possible. Very scary incident there indeed. Where is Jack Ma? Now, you may know him as the Alibaba founder. Well, the problem is his absence from public view in the past couple of months, including missing the final episode of a TV show on which he was to appear as a judge, has fueled social media speculation over his whereabouts amid the Chinese regulatory clampdown on his sprawling business empire. China's highest profile entrepreneur has not appeared in a public setting since late October. That's where he blasted China's regulatory system in a speech that put him on a collision course with officials, resulting in a suspension of a $37 billion IPO of Alibaba's Ant Group fintech arm. The Financial Times reported on Friday that Ma was replaced as a judge in the final episode in November of a game show for entrepreneurs called Africa's Business Heroes. An Alibaba spokeswoman has said that the change was due to a scheduling conflict, declining further comment. While news coverage of Ma's absence from public view triggered speculation on Twitter, which is blocked in China, it was not a significant trending topic on social media in mainland China, where sensitive topics are subject to censorship. Chinese regulators have zeroed in on Ma's businesses since his October speech, including launching an antitrust probe into Alibaba and ordering Ant to shake up its lending and other consumer finance businesses, including the creation of a separate holding company to meet capital requirements. I think he's been told to lay low, said Duncan Clark, chairman of Beijing-based tech consultant DBA China. This is a pretty unique situation, more linked to the sheer scale of Ant and the sensitivities over financial regulation. Alibaba's Hong Kong-listed shares fell by 2.15% on Monday. Yeah, they're all wondering where he is. Interesting. A British judge has denied a request from the United States to extradite WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, arguing that he is likely to commit suicide if sent overseas to face espionage charges. District Judge Vanessa Barrister also called such a move oppressive because of Assange's mental health, but the U.S. government says it will appeal her decision. We are enormously gratified by the UK court's decision denying extradition. Barry Pollock, a Washington, D.C.-based lawyer for Assange. The effort by the United States to prosecute Assange and seeking his extradition was ill-advised from the start. U.S. prosecutors have indicted Assange on 17 espionage charges and one charge of computer misuse over WikiLeaks' publication of leaked military and diplomatic documents that happened a decade ago. The charges carry a maximum sentence of 179 years in prison. Now, lawyers for the 49-year-old Australian argue that he was acting as a journalist and is entitled to the First Amendment protections of freedom of speech for publishing leaked documents that exposed U.S. military wrongdoings in Iraq and Afghanistan. Yet the judges rejected claims by the defense that Assange was protected by free speech guarantees, saying his conduct, if proved, would therefore amount to offenses in this jurisdiction that would not be protected by his right to freedom of speech. But Barrister also said Assange suffered from clinical depression that would be exacerbated by the isolation that he would face in U.S. prison. The judge noted that Assange had the intellect and determination to circumvent any suicide prevention measures the authorities could take. Supporters of Assange were captured on video celebrating this decision in the streets of London after being received word that the extradition request was denied. All right. Well, we are at that one already. Let's go here. A remorseful thief who took the sword from a statue of a Revolutionary War hero in Massachusetts has returned the sculpture's blade to the City Historical Commission with his apologies. Cindy P. Gaylord, chair of the Westfield Historical Commission, said a man contacted Westfield City Hall in December and asked to be connected with someone involved with the commission. His message was very cryptic, she said. He said he was in possession of something that belonged to Westfield and he wanted to return it. Gaylord arranged to meet the person in person, who then recounted to her the entire story of how he was a student at Westfield State University in 1980 and ended up taking the bronze sword from the sculpture of General William Shepard, a Revolutionary War hero in the city's downtown. The man told Gaylord the theft was a drunken mistake. He said he pulled it with such force that he fell backwards off the pedestal with the sword in his hand. The sword pierced his shirt and is near his stomach and stabbed into the ground. His buddies had to pull him up. The man said that he and his sister recently rediscovered the sword while going through family belongings, and he decided to attempt to return it to the city. He had a great deal of shame and remorse, Gaylord said. He is a veteran and told me the fact that he did this to another soldier. If he did this to another soldier, it troubled him. He wants the story printed to remind people that something you do in your youth could haunt you for the rest of your life. The statue's sword was replaced decades ago by the original, which will likely have a new home at a local museum. The sword's return was applauded by Cape Cod Daughters of the American Revolution. Sad that it went missing, but how wonderful that it has finally been returned, they said on their Facebook. Oh, isn't that nice? Isn't that nice? Animal rescuers in Scotland are searching for the owners of an escaped hamster that braved sub-freezing temperatures to make its way to a candy store. The Scottish SPCA said the hamster was caught on CCTV footage clinging to a person who entered the Poundland candy shop in Glasgow on New Year's Eve. Oh, this is just a ratty little hamster, isn't it? The hamster jumped off the apparently unaware shopper inside the store and was soon captured and turned over to the SPCA. Animal Control Officer Amy Sturton said the hamster is in good health despite its journey through the streets in temperatures that reached a low of 5 degrees. Oh, T-shirt weather. We have named the little adrenaline junkie Tom Cruise for now, given his Mission Impossible-esque attempt to get some treats from Poundland, Sturton said. Sturton said officials are now attempting to find the hamster's owners. Given how unusual this is, and this year has been in 2020, it feels appropriate to round off 2020 with such a bizarre job. And finally tonight, Shirky Poo's going to hang me for this one. Yeah, I went off the board on this one. I had to. You know, we all need a laugh every now and again, but this one's actually causing quite the controversy in Rio de Janeiro. Why? Well, let old Davey tell you. A huge sculpture of a vagina on a hillside in northeastern Brazil has fueled an ongoing cultural war between leftists and conservatives, including close allies of far-right President Jair Bolsonaro. Called Diva, the vivid 33-meter or 108-foot concrete and resin sculpture by artist Giuliano Notari is located at the site of a former sugar mill that has been turned into an open-air museum. Yes, unveiling the installation last week, Notari said it depicted both a vagina and a wound, questioning the relationship between nature and culture, and phallocentric and anthropocentric society. Artists always got to use them big words. You ever notice that? Anyways, the issues have become increasingly urgent today, she wrote on her Facebook, accompanied by a series of photos of the vast bright red sculpture, which took a team of 20 artisans 11 months to make. The artwork triggered a hot debate on social media, with more than 25,000 people commenting on Notari's Facebook post, both supporters and critics of the work. With all due respect, I did not like it. Imagine me walking with my young daughters in this park and them asking, Daddy, what is this? What will I answer? One commenter wrote. In response, a female poster wrote, with all due respect, you can teach your daughters not to be ashamed of their own genitals. Bolsonaro's political guru, Olavo de Carvalho, took to Twitter to lambaste Notari's work, seemingly proposing a giant penis sculpture as a way to challenge it. Oh, here we go. Oh, the gloves are off in genitalia art in Rio de Janeiro. Can you imagine? Ding, 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 ding. In this corner, Notari's vagina. In this corner, we have De Carvalho's penis. I can see it now. Pay-per-view is going to make millions off of this. Anyways, his comment drew nearly 700 retweets, many laden with outspoken criticism against the leftist. Bolsonaro, meanwhile, has long criticized art he seems to be left-wing, and in 2019 he tried unsuccessfully to freeze funding for movies with LGBTQ plus themes. Horrible guy. Who does that? An idiot. Anyways, months later, his culture secretary was fired after posting a video in which he appeared to copy a speech by Nazi propaganda chief Joseph Goebbels. Oh, this guy's a real winner. But the battle continues in Rio de Janeiro. Penis versus vagina. Who would have thought, right? Who would have thought? What is your thoughts on the correlation between consciousness and UFOs and ET contact? John, direct connection via DNA and blood descendants. Chip, you need to slow down your frequency and fine-tune into your soul. Then the universe will speak to you. Our Keith Andrews knows what I'm talking about. Dominic, Supreme Being V Dark One for absolutely the whole universe of universes. I don't know what that means. Davey, the two things are inextricably linked. Consciousness is the expression of creation, and we are all one consciousness experiencing itself subjectively. Spike, we are all connected, every living thing in the universe, with the living universe itself. Kinch, correlation is highly significant in my opinion. Very nice, Kinch. Whoever used the word ginch for their underwear? I mean, we're already down the gutter. Might as well go the full court now. My ex-wife hated the word ginch for underwear. Grossed her out, much like the word moist. Hated it. Ginch. G-I-N-C-H. Anyways. Moving on. Shirky Poo, by the way, says, I deliberately ignored that article. Yes, but I found it. You cannot hide this from me. Anyways, Davey says, the two things are inextricably linked. Consciousness is the expression of creation, and we're all conscious. Kimberly, for those it happened for, it is definitely unexpected. For those I've spoken to about it, I have not had it happen to me, but then again, it is not like I have intention to do so in that matter either. Uncle Dale and his power stash. I don't understand the question, but your mustache does, Uncle Dale. Tom, I think they are judging the quality of our transcendence from day to day, waiting for some magical number or percentage for them to reveal themselves. Debbie, both connected. We are both telepathically and consciously connected. Eric, frequency in the electromagnetic field. Anselmo, Dave, you just sounded like my psychiatrist when he asked me a question. Oh my. Jack, final word. Definitely a connection. If you look closely enough at the UFO phenomenon, things get pretty fast. Thank you to everybody participating in the Thought of the Day on Facebook and Twitter. We'll do it all again tomorrow. Thank you to Captain Shirk for the wonderful stories in the SOR Newswire, and we love her for it. We do. Every now and again, I got to throw one in there. She'll get mad at me, but I'll just smile, and she'll be like, oh, you're just so cute. Okay, we're not mad anymore. And thank you to our guest, Pane Andov, as well, for going the distance where I barely had to talk.
In your attic, fully covered means fully insulated. If you can see your rafters, you're losing heat and money. But with the Home Depot, it's easy to add blow-in insulation yourself in just a few hours, and you'll save up to 15% on heating and cooling costs for years to come. Winter temps are here, so are winter heating bills. Are you covered? Right now, get a free blow-in machine rental when you purchase 10 bags or more of select blow-in insulation. Only at the Home Depot. How doers get more done. In your attic, fully covered means fully insulated. If you can see your rafters, you're losing heat and money. But with the Home Depot, it's easy to add blow-in insulation yourself in just a few hours, and you'll save up to 15% on heating and cooling costs for years to come. Winter temps are here, so are winter heating bills. Are you covered? Right now, get a free blow-in machine rental when you purchase 10 bags or more of select blow-in insulation, only at the Home Depot. How doers get more done.